Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku had to choose between two lives. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The rain in the industrial district of Unauthorized didn't wash away the grime, it just made it slicker. It was a cold, miserable downpour, the kind that seeped into the gaps of a hero costume and chilled the bones. Izuku Midoriya, hero named Deku, crouched atop a shipping container, the green lightning of one for all crackling softly around his silhouette like a static halo. Beside him, Katsuki Bakugo adjusted his gauntlets, a low growl rumbling in his throat that rivaled the distant thunder. "Stop vibrating, nerd," Bakugo snapped, though his eyes never left the alleyway below. "You're shaking the whole damn crate." "I'm not shaking," Izuku whispered back, scanning the shadows. "I'm recalibrating. The thermal readings from my cowl are getting interference." "It's the villain's quirk. It's annoying is what it is," Bakugo huffed. "Quiet, both of you," Shoto Todoroki said calmly from Izuku's left. He was the only one not bothered by the rain, his left side radiating a gentle heat that sent up faint wisps of steam. Endeavor's intel was specific. The villain Janus is cornered. He deals in illegal support items and quirk-enhancing drugs, but his own quirk is the real danger. Psychological displacement. Fancy words for brainwashing, Bakugo scoffed. "I'll blast him before he can open his mouth." "It's not brainwashing," Izuku corrected, his mind racing through the briefing files he had memorized earlier that evening. "It's theoretical. They call it divergence. The police reports say victims go catatonic, or they start hallucinating lives they never lived. It attacks the decision-making centers of the brain. The what-ifs. Don't let him hit you." "Simple," Bakugo said, standing up as a figure emerged from the warehouse below. The figure was unassuming. He wore a long, dual-colored trench coat, one side pristine white, the other a matted, dirty gray. A mask covered his face, split down the middle in a tragedy-comedy motif, but reversed. The smiling side looked sinister, while the frowning side looked peaceful. "Janus!" Izuku shouted, leaping down from the container, landing in a crouch that cracked the wet pavement. "Surrender peacefully. You have nowhere to run." Bakugo and Todoroki flanked him instantly, a perfect triangle formation they had drilled 1,000 times in their second year at UA. The villain looked up. He didn't seem afraid. If anything, the posture of his shoulders suggested a weary amusement. "Children," Janus's voice rasped, amplified by some device in his mask. It sounded like two voices speaking at once, slightly out of sync. "Soldiers for a war you didn't start. Do you ever wonder? Do you ever look at the stars and wonder where you'd be if you'd turned left instead of right? Save the philosophy for the interrogation room," Bakugo yelled. He launched himself forward with an explosion, propelling his body like a missile. AP shot. A concentrated beam of explosive energy tore through the air. Janus didn't dodge. He simply raised a hand, and the air around him rippled like water disturbed by a stone. The explosion didn't hit him. It curved, bending around his body as if space itself had decided to accommodate him. "Refraction?" Todoroki surmised, sending a wave of ice surging forward to trap the villain's legs. "No," Izuku realized, his danger sense flaring like a siren in his skull. He didn't bend the blast. He shifted where he was. Janus stepped through the ice as if it were mist. "We are all just collections of choices," he intoned, raising both hands. The air began to hum, a low frequency that made Izuku's teeth ache. The path of the hero is a heavy one. Blood. Bone. Sacrifice. Do you not crave the road not taken? "Shut up!" Bakugo roared, circling back for a blindside attack from the rear. "Die! Kaken, wait!" Izuku screamed. The danger sense was screaming now, a piercing needle into his brainstem. It wasn't pointing at him. It was pointing at Bakugo. Janus spun with unnatural speed. His hands came together, and a beam of energy shot out, not fire, not force, but a spiraling helix of violet and gold light. It wasn't aimed at Bakugo's body, it was aimed at his head. "The aggressor," Janus murmured. "Let's see who you would be without the anger." Time seemed to slow. It was the sensation Izuku had grown used to since unlocking the higher percentages of One for All, the world turning to molasses while his mind raced at light speed. He saw the beam tracking Bakugo. He saw Bakugo's eyes widen, mid-air, unable to change trajectory. He saw the choice. If he gets hit, he's out. If I move, I leave an opening. But I can't let him take that hit. Smash! Izuku kicked off the ground at 45%, the concrete pulverizing instantly. He wasn't aiming for the villain. He threw his body into the trajectory of the beam, shoving Bakugo hard in the chest. Deku, you idiot! Bakugo shouted as he was knocked clear, tumbling into a pile of scrap metal. Izuku didn't hear him. He felt the beam impact his chest, but there was no pain. No heat. Just a sensation of immense, crushing weight. It felt like being submerged in deep water, the pressure pushing against his eardrums, his eyes, his very soul. A noble sacrifice, Janice's voice echoed, sounding like it was coming from inside Izuku's own head. The martyr. Always the martyr. Let us see, Izuku Midoriya. Let us see the boy beneath the power. The world twisted. The rain stopped. The gray warehouse dissolved into a blinding kaleidoscope of white noise. Izuku reached out, trying to grab onto something, anything, one for all, the black whip, the ground, but his fingers grasped only void. His consciousness felt like a piece of paper being slowly, meticulously torn in half, and then darkness. Timeline A, the hero path. The first thing Izuku registered was the smell of antiseptic. It was a smell he knew too well, a sensory bookmark for the dozens of times he had woken up in the UA infirmary. His eyelids felt made of lead. He forced them open, the harsh fluorescent light stinging his pupils. A groan escaped his lips, a dry, raspy sound. He's coming to, a tired voice said. Aizawa. About time, another voice grumbled. Bakugo. Izuku blinked, the blurriness receding to reveal the familiar white ceiling. He tried to sit up, but a wave of nausea slammed him back against the pillows. Easy, Sonny, Recovery Girl's voice came from his left. Your vitals are stable, but your brain activity is erratic. Don't push it, the villain. Izuku croaked, his throat feeling like he'd swallowed sandpaper. Janice. Did we? Todoroki encased him in a glacier about 3 seconds after you hit the floor, Aizawa said, stepping into his line of sight. The teacher looked more exhausted than usual, his capture scarf hanging loosely around his neck. He's in Tartarus custody. Nullification cuffs applied. Izuku let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. And Kaken? Is he? I'm right here, damn it, Bakugo snapped. He was leaning against the wall, arms crossed. He looked uninjured, but his expression was dark, his red eyes narrowed in a way that usually meant he was overthinking. You took a hit meant for me. Again. You have a hero complex the size of a planet, you know that? I just moved, Izuku murmured, looking down at his hands. They were scarred, crooked, the hands of a fighter. He clenched them. One for all hummed beneath the skin, a familiar, comforting warmth. I'm okay. I feel okay. Physically, yes, Recovery Girl said, hopping down from her stool to check a monitor. Whatever that beam was, it didn't cause tissue damage. But your EEG is bizarre, Midoriya. It's showing REM sleep patterns even while you're awake and talking to us. Your brain is firing on double cylinders. I feel tired, Izuku admitted. It was an understatement. He felt a bone-deep exhaustion, as if he had run a marathon while solving calculus problems. Heavy. The quirk was called divergence, Aizawa said, reading from a tablet. We interrogated him briefly before they took him away. He claims he splits the river. We don't know exactly what that means yet, but we're monitoring you for hallucinations or personality shifts. I know who I am, Izuku said firmly. I'm Izuku Midoriya. UA High School. Hero course. Good, Aizawa nodded. Rest. You're excused from classes tomorrow. Bakugo, Todoroki, get back to the dorms, TCH. Bakugo pushed off the wall. He hesitated at the door, glancing back at Izuku. For a second, he looked like he wanted to say something else, perhaps a thank you, perhaps an insult, but he just clicked his tongue and walked out. Izuku watched them leave. The room fell silent, save for the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor. He lay back, staring at the ceiling. Divergence. The word echoed in his mind. He closed his eyes, desperate for sleep to wash away the heaviness in his limbs. He focused on his breathing, letting the darkness take him. 1, 2, 3. He waited for the drift, the slide into unconsciousness, but there was no drift. There was a snap. Timeline B, the civilian path. Izuku's eyes flew open. He gasped, sitting bolt upright, his heart hammering against his ribs. Izuku! You're going to be late. The voice came from down the hall. It was his mother. But her voice, it sounded lighter. Higher. Not laced with the perpetual, underlying tremor of anxiety he had grown used to over the last 2 years. Izuku looked around wildly. He wasn't in the infirmary. He was in his room, but it wasn't his room. The layout was the same, but the details were wrong. The All Might posters, the limited edition Silver Age tapestry, the bronze statue on the desk, were gone. In their place were framed maps of Muzurifu, intricate diagrams of quirk genealogy, and stacks upon stacks of notebooks that looked far more organized than his usual hero analysis journals. He looked at his hands. They were smooth. The thick, jagged scar that ran up his right arm from the muscular fight? Gone. The crookedness of his fingers from breaking them repeatedly? Gone. His arms were thinner. Not the spindly twigs of his middle school years, but lean. The explosive muscle mass he had built to handle 45% of One for All was missing. What? Izuku whispered. He touched his face. No scar on his cheek. Izuku! Inko called again, closer this time. Panic flared. Is this the hallucination? Did the quirk trap me in a dream? He scrambled out of bed. His body felt incredibly light, almost weightless without the density of muscle he was used to. He stumbled to the mirror on the back of his door. A boy looked back at him. It was him, but softer. His hair was less wild, cut a little shorter. He wore a simple t-shirt that said pants instead of his usual merchandise. One for all, he murmured, trying to summon the power. He reached for the spark, the stockpile of energy that always simmered in his core. Nothing. There was only a hollow silence. No warmth. No vestiges. No black whip. Just the quiet hum of his own biology. No, he breathed, backing away from the mirror. No, no, no. The door opened, and Inko Midoriya bustled in. She looked radiant. She looked 5 years younger. The lines of worry that had etched themselves into her face in the hero timeline were smoothed out. She was wearing an apron and holding a spatula. I swear, you worked too hard at that precinct, she chided gently, smiling at him. Up until 3 a.m. analyzing cold cases again? Detective Tsukachi called, you know. He said you don't have to be there until 9, but you know how the trains get. Precinct? Izuku repeated, his voice shaking. Mom? Inko paused, her expression softening. She walked over and placed a hand on his forehead. Her hand was warm, real. You look pale, sweetie. Are you okay? Do you have a fever? I don't know, Izuku stammered. Mom, where is All Might? Inko laughed, a bright, bubbling sound. On TV, I assume? Or probably stopping a villain in Tokyo. Why? Did you have a nightmare? Izuku looked at her. Really looked at her. She was happy. She wasn't terrified that her son was going to die today. She was just a mother, fussing over her son's commute. I had a weird dream, he said, deciding to play along until he could figure out how to break the illusion. I'm okay. Good. Breakfast is on the table. Eat, or you'll faint during your presentation. She patted his cheek and left the room. Izuku stood frozen for a moment. He rushed to his desk. He grabbed one of the notebooks. The cover read, Quirk Analysis and Villain Theory Volume 14. Property of Izuku Midoriya, Muzurifu PD intern. He flipped it open. The handwriting was his, but the content was different. Instead of hero moves and super combos, there were criminal profiles. Behavioral analysis. Predictive algorithms for villain activity based on quirk types. It was brilliant work, genius level, but it was purely academic. He looked at the calendar on the wall. The date was the same. 2nd year of high school. But the school uniform hanging on his chair wasn't the gray blazer of UA. It was the standard black gakurin of a regular public high school. I'm quirkless, he realized, the word tasting like ash in his mouth. In this world, All Might never gave me his hair. I never went to UA. He quickly got dressed, his movements mechanical. He needed to investigate. He needed to find the source of this illusion and break it. He walked out into the kitchen. The smell of miso soup and grilled fish filled the air. He sat down, and Inko placed a bowl in front of him. So, she said, sitting across from him with her tea. Are you going to see Ochako-chan later? Izuku choked on his soup. Uraraka? Yes, Ochako-chan, Inko smiled teasingly. She said she might have a break from her hero training this afternoon. You two are going for crepes, right? We are? Honestly, Izuku, for a genius analyst, you're very forgetful today. Inko shook her head. Yes. She texted you. I saw your phone light up. Izuku grabbed his phone from the table. It wasn't the reinforced, hero-grade smartphone he carried in his other life. It was a standard model, slightly cracked screen. He unlocked it. There was a text from Uraraka Hero Course. Hey! Training is brutal today. Gunhead is visiting. Can't wait for sugar later. Meet at the station at 4? Izuku stared at the screen. In this world, they knew each other? How? If he wasn't in UA, how did they meet? Mom, Izuku asked slowly. How did I meet Uraraka-san? Inko looked at him with genuine concern now. Izuku, are you sure you're okay? You met her at the station when she dropped her pass, remember? Last year? You helped her find it. Right, Izuku lied. Right. Brain fog. Sorry. He finished breakfast in a daze, said goodbye to his mother, who hugged him tightly, a hug devoid of the desperate fear he was used to, and left the apartment. The walk to the station was surreal. In the hero timeline, Izuku walked with a constant, hypervigilant awareness. He scanned rooftops, checked alleys, listened for screams. He walked like a soldier. Here, he walked like a civilian. His body felt vulnerable. Without One for All, he felt naked. Every loud noise made him flinch, not into a combat stance, but into a cower. He boarded the train. It was crowded. He squeezed into a corner. On the news screen above the seats, a report was playing. Lemillion saves the day again. The UA third-year student, tipped to be the next number one, resolved the hostage situation in under 3 minutes. Footage showed Mirio Togata, Lemillion, smiling brilliantly at the camera, his cape fluttering. He looked strong. Unstoppable. Izuku felt a pang of jealousy so sharp it almost doubled him over. That should be me. That's my future. But then, a second thought, quieter and more insidious. He looks like he has it handled. The world is safe without me. He arrived at the destination. The Musudafa police precinct. He walked in, the badge in his pocket feeling foreign. The desk sergeant nodded to him. Morning, Midoriya. The detective is waiting for you in the war room. Izuku navigated the corridors. He knew the layout of this place in his other life, having visited Tsukachi often to debrief on villain attacks. But here, he walked past the holding cells and into the analysis wing. Detective Tsukachi looked the same, tired, trench coat rumpled, coffee in hand. He was standing over a digital map of the city. Midoriya, Tsukachi said, turning around. A genuine smile broke through his exhaustion. Glad you're here. We're stuck on the sewer shark case. We can't predict his exit points. Izuku walked over to the map. His brain, seemingly independent of his confusion, began to work. He looked at the sewage layouts, the flow rates, the quirk parameters of the villain. He's not following the current, Izuku said, his finger tracing a line. He has a mutation type that requires high humidity but low light. He's avoiding the main drainage because of the maintenance lights installed last week. He'll surface here. The old textile factory in District 4. Tsukachi blinked, then looked closer at the map. The textile factory, the humidity levels would be perfect there because of the old vats. Damn, kid. You're scary. It's just logical deduction, Izuku mumbled. It's a gift, Tsukachi corrected. He put a hand on Izuku's shoulder. You know, the police academy entrance exams are in 2 months. I've already written your recommendation letter. You're going to make a hell of a detective, Izuku. Maybe the best I've ever seen. Izuku felt a warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with One for All. It was pride. Simple, unadulterated pride. Thank you, sir. Get to work on the filing for the trigger shipment bust. Coffee is in the pot. Izuku sat at his desk. It was cluttered with papers. He worked, and for the first time in years he felt safe. There was no impending doom. No Shigaraki Tamura waiting to decay the city. No all-for-one hunting him for his quirk. Just paperwork, puzzles, and the quiet hum of a police station. The hours flew by. He solved 3 cold cases in his head before lunch. He felt useful. He wasn't breaking his bones. He wasn't disappointing All Might. He was just Izuku Midoriya, solving crimes. At 4 p.m., he clocked out and went to the station. Ochako Uraraka was waiting. She wasn't wearing her uniform, but casual clothes. She saw him and waved, her face lighting up. Deku-kun! She called out. He froze. Deku? She ran up to him, stopping just shy of personal space. Well, you said I could call you that. You said it sounds like you can do it now, remember? In this world, he had reclaimed the name without the powers. Right, Izuku smiled, and it felt genuine. Hey, Uraraka-san, crepes. She declared, grabbing his wrist. Her grip was strong. She was still a hero student, after all. I'm buying. I got my provisional license stipend today. They sat on a park bench, eating strawberries and cream crepes. Uraraka talked about her training, about how hard Gunhead's martial arts were, about how Ida was stressing everyone out about dorm cleanliness. Izuku listened. He was usually on the inside of those stories. Now, he was the outsider looking in, but Uraraka didn't treat him like a civilian who wouldn't understand. She treated him like her confidant. It's scary, she admitted, biting her lip. The villains are getting bolder. Sometimes I wonder if I'm strong enough. You are, Izuku said instantly. You have excellent spatial awareness and your quirk evolution is incredible. You can control gravity, Uraraka. That's a fundamental force of the universe. You're going to be a great hero. She blushed, beaming at him. Thanks, Deku-kun. You always know what to say. She leaned her head on his shoulder. Izuku stiffened, then relaxed. It was peaceful. It was perfect. The sun began to set, casting long orange shadows across the park. I could stay here, he thought. The thought terrified him. I could just stay here. No war. No pain. Just this. I should get home, Uraraka said, standing up. Curfew. Yeah, Izuku said. Me too. He walked home. He had dinner with his mother. They watched a comedy show. He laughed. He actually laughed. By 10 p.m., he was exhausted. The mental strain of the day, combined with the lingering fatigue from the other life, was catching up to him. He went to his room, the room with no All Might posters. He crawled into bed. The sheets were soft. It was a dream, he told himself. The villain fight, the hospital, that was the nightmare. This is real. This is my life. I'm just a normal guy. He believed it. He wanted to believe it. He closed his eyes, letting the safety of the civilian world wrap around him like a blanket. Good night, Izuku. He drifted off. Timeline A, the hero path. Snap. Izuku's eyes slammed open. He was staring at the white ceiling of the UA infirmary. The heart monitor was still beeping. The smell of antiseptic filled his nose. No, Izuku gasped, sitting up. The movement sent a jolt of pain through his stiff muscles. It was night. The room was dark, lit only by the streetlights outside the window. He grabbed his phone from the bedside table. 3 a.m. He had closed his eyes in the civilian world at 10 p.m. He had opened them here instantly. There was no gap. No unconsciousness. His mind had simply jumped tracks. It wasn't a dream, he whispered, clutching his head. His hands were scarred again. He could feel the stockpile of one for all churning in his gut. He threw the covers off and swung his legs out of bed. He felt dizzy. His brain felt like it had been running a marathon for 24 hours straight. Because it had. He hadn't slept. He had just lived a full day as quirkless Izuku, and now he was back to being hero Izuku without a second of rest in between. Midoriya? The door creaked open. It was the night nurse. Why are you up? You need to sleep. I can't, Izuku said, his voice trembling with a rising horror. I can't sleep. What do you mean? You've been out for 4 hours. No, Izuku said, staring at his scarred hands. I wasn't out. I was somewhere else. He stood up, his legs shaking. He needed to clear his head. He needed to verify this. I need to make a call. Midoriya, it's 3 a.m. Please. He dialed the number he knew by heart. It rang 3 times. Hello? A groggy, confused voice. Uraraka. Uraraka-san, Izuku breathed. I'm sorry. I know it's late. Deku-kun? Are you okay? Did something happen at the hospital? She sounded instantly awake, the hero instinct kicking in. I just need to ask you something. It's going to sound crazy. What is it? Did we get crepes today? There was a long silence on the other end. Crepes? Uraraka asked, confused. Deku-kun, you've been in a coma since the fight with Janice this afternoon. I visited you, but you were asleep. We didn't get crepes. Izuku closed his eyes. Tears leaked out. Right. Of course. Sorry, Uraraka-san. Just medication side effects. Vivid dreams. Oh. Okay. Do you want me to come over? No. Go back to sleep. I'll see you tomorrow. He hung up. He walked to the window and pressed his forehead against the cold glass. He looked at his reflection. Scarred. Powerful. Tired. He realized then the cruelty of Janice's quirk. Divergence. It wasn't just a split. It was a dual existence. If he tried to sleep here, he woke up there. If he tried to sleep there, he woke up here. I'm never going to sleep again, he whispered to the reflection. And beneath the terror of the insomnia, a darker realization was taking root. In the other world, he was happy. In the other world, his mother wasn't afraid. In the other world, he didn't have to break himself to be worthy. He looked at his hero hands. For the first time since he met All Might on that beach, Izuku Midoriya looked at One for All, and felt the weight of a curse. A sharp pain spiked in his temple, and Janice's voice, a memory from the fight, echoed in the silence of the hospital room. Do you not crave the road not taken? Izuku slid down the wall to the floor, pulling his knees to his chest. He was awake. He was alone. And the clock was ticking. The transition was violent. There was no drift, no gentle fading of consciousness. One moment, Izuku was pulling the duvet up to his chin in the quiet, climate-controlled bedroom of his civilian life, the scent of his mother's fabric softener lingering in the air. He was thinking about the cold case file regarding the sewer shark and the date he had tentatively planned with Uraraka for the weekend. He was tired, yes, but it was a good tired. The kind that came from a day of honest, safe work. He blinked. Slam. The smell of fabric softener vanished, replaced instantly by the sterile, recycled air of the Heights Alliance dorms. The soft cotton sheets were gone, replaced by the slightly rougher, utilitarian bedding of UA. But the worst part was the gravity. In the civilian timeline, his body was lighter. He lacked the density of muscle required to house One for All. He was fit, but he was human. Here, in the hero timeline, he felt like he was made of lead. The sheer density of his own body, the stockpile of power churning beneath his skin, felt crushing. It was as if gravity had been dialed up by 300%. Izuku gasped, his hands clawing at his chest. His heart was hammering a frantic, uneven rhythm against his ribs. He sat up, gasping for air. The room spun. The All Might posters on the wall seemed to loom over him, their shadows stretching like accusations in the dim light of the digital alarm clock. 6 a.m. He had just spent 16 hours awake in the other world. He had worked a full shift at the precinct, had dinner, studied, and gone to bed. His mind had experienced a full day of activity, and now, without a single second of rest, his consciousness had been ripped back to this body. Oh God, Izuku whispered, his voice cracking. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and immediately doubled over, clutching his head. A migraine, sharp and jagged like broken glass, sawed through his frontal lobe. It wasn't just a headache. It was a structural strain. His brain was processing 2 streams of memories, 2 sets of motor skills, 2 entire realities, with 0 downtime to defragment. He looked at his hands. In the other world, they were smooth. Callous from writing, perhaps, but unblemished. Here, they were maps of violence. The scars on his right hand were thick, twisted ropes of keloid tissue where his fingers had been shattered and healed. They trembled uncontrollably. "Stop it," he hissed at his own hands, clenching them into fists until the knuckles turned white. "Stop shaking." He stood up. His knees buckled, and he had to grab the desk to stay upright. The All Might statue on the desk, the one that didn't exist in the other room, stared at him with that eternal, plaster smile. "I am here," the smile seemed to say. "But are you?" Izuku's mind countered. He stumbled to the bathroom attached to his dorm room. He splashed cold water on his face, shivering as the droplets ran down his neck. He looked in the mirror. The reflection was haunting. His eyes were bloodshot, rimmed with dark, purple bruises of exhaustion. His skin was pale, making the freckles stand out starkly. He looked like a ghost haunting his own body. "You have school," he told the mirror. "You have hero training. You have to save the world." The words felt hollow. In the other world, the world didn't need saving. The police handled the criminals. The pro-heroes, Mirio, Endeavor, Hawks, they handled the big threats. Izuku Midoriya was just a cog in a functioning machine. Here, he was the machine. He was the engine. If he stopped, the world ended. Shigaraki was out there. All for One was out there. He reached for the toothbrush, but his hand spasmed, and he knocked a bottle of toner into the sink. The clatter sounded like a gunshot in the silent room. He flinched, crouching instinctively into a combat stance, green lightning flickering across his skin for a microsecond before sputtering out. "Calm down," he panted, staring at the plastic bottle. "It's just noise. Just noise." He forced himself to go through the motions. Brush teeth. Wash face. Put on the uniform. The gray blazer felt like a suit of armor, stiff and heavy. He tied his tie, his fingers fumbling with the knot 3 times before he got it right. He grabbed his backpack. It felt like it contained rocks. Day 2, he thought, opening his door. "I can do this. I just have to stay awake." The common room of Heights Alliance was bustling with the morning chaos of Class 1A. The smell of burnt toast and brewing coffee hung in the air. Usually Izuku loved this. He loved the noise, the camaraderie, the feeling of a family forged in fire. Today, the noise was physical pain. "Morning, Midoriya." Tenya Ida's voice boomed like a cannon blast. The class representative was chopping the air with his hand, lecturing Kaminari about proper nutrition. Izuku winced, a visible flinch that he tried to disguise as a stretch. "Morning, Ida-kun. You look terrible." Ida noted, his volume not decreasing. He zoomed over, adjusting his glasses. "Did you not sleep well? Recovery girl said your brain activity was erratic." Yeah," Izuku mumbled, moving toward the coffee pot. "Just vivid dreams. The villain's quirk, you know." "Man, that Janus guy was creepy," Kirishima said, biting into a protein bar. "Divergence? What does that even mean? Did you dream you were a villain or something?" "No," Izuku said, pouring coffee into a mug. His hand was shaking so bad the dark liquid splashed onto the counter. He stared at the spill, his mind flashing to a spilled ink pot on his desk at the precinct in the other world. "Wait. Did I clean that ink up? Or did I leave it for the janitor?" "No, I cleaned it with a tissue. I remember the texture of the paper." "Deku-kun?" A soft hand touched his shoulder. Izuku jumped, spinning around. Ochako Uraraka was standing there, looking concerned. Her big brown eyes searched his face. "Whoa, Jumpy," she said softly. "Here, let me get that." She grabbed a cloth and wiped up the coffee spill. "Are you okay?" "You're vibrating." Izuku looked at her. In his mind, he saw her from 4 hours ago. She was wearing a pink sweater, laughing, with whipped cream on her nose from a crepe. She had held his hand. It had been warm and soft. Here, she was wearing her uniform. There were calluses on her fingertips from her gravity pads. She looked tired, too. There was a small bandage on her chin from yesterday's training. The duality made him dizzy. "Which one is real?" "Both," the answer whispered. "Both are real. And you are losing your mind." "I'm fine, Uraraka-san," he said, forcing a smile. It felt brittle, like cracked plaster. "Just coffee." "Need coffee." "Okay," she said slowly, not convinced. "Well, sit down." Sadako-kun made pancakes. Izuku sat. He stared at the pancakes. He wasn't hungry. His stomach was churning with acid. But he forced himself to eat. Fuel. He needed fuel. One for all burned calories like a furnace. If he didn't eat, he would pass out. Did you hear? Kaminari whispered, leaning over the table. Aizawa-sensei said the commission is increasing patrol shifts for work studies. They think the PLF is moving again. Great, Jiro sighed, twirling her earphone jack. More sleepless nights. Izuku choked on his pancake. Sleepless nights. They had no idea. Bakugo walked into the kitchen then. The room quieted down slightly. The explosive blonde had a way of sucking the oxygen out of a space. He walked past the table, grabbing a spicy curry bun from the fridge. He stopped behind Izuku. He didn't say anything. He just stood there for a second. Izuku could feel Bakugo's eyes boring into the back of his skull. He felt the heat radiating off him. You smell like antiseptic, Bakugo muttered, low enough that only Izuku could hear. Shower gel, Izuku lied, not turning around. Bullshit, Bakugo grunted. He kicked Izuku's chair leg lightly. Wake up, nerd. We have combat training this afternoon. If you drag your feet, I'll blast you myself. He stomped away. Izuku gripped his fork. He wanted to scream. He wanted to shout, I'm not dragging my feet. I'm carrying the sky, but he said nothing. He swallowed the pancake. It tasted like cardboard. Classes were a blur of nausea and confusion. In English, Present Mike was shouting about participles. Izuku's pen moved across the page, but when he looked down, he realized he wasn't writing English notes. He had written, suspect profile, male, 30s, quirk, hydrokinesis. Weakness, low humidity environments. Referred to Muzidafa PD Archive 4B. He stared at the notebook. That was the profile for the sewer shark villain he was tracking in the civilian timeline. He erased it frantically, the friction tearing the paper. In modern hero art history, Midnight was discussing the impact of All Might's debut. Izuku found himself staring out the window. The sky was gray. He tried to reach out to the vestiges. Usually, when he was stressed, he could feel a hum in the back of his mind, the presence of the previous users. Daigoro Banjo's funky energy, Nana Shimura's warmth, the first's intensity. He closed his eyes and pushed his mind inward, past the exhaustion, searching for the flame of one for all. Hello? Can anyone hear me? Silence. Not the peaceful silence of an empty room. The terrifying silence of a disconnected phone line. The static was immense. It was as if the divergence quirk had erected a wall of white noise between his conscious mind and the quirk's core. I'm alone, he realized. For the first time in a year, they aren't here. Midoriya! Midnight's voice snapped like a whip. Izuku jerked up. Yes, ma'am. I asked you about the socio-economic impact of the Kamino Ward incident on the support item industry, Midnight said, her arms crossed. You've been staring at that cloud for 10 minutes. Izuku's mind went blank. The information was there, buried under layers of fog. Property values dropped, he stammered. And, stock and barrier tech companies rose by 400%. Correct, but you missed the point about insurance premiums, Midnight sighed. Stay with us, Midoriya. The world doesn't stop because you're tired. Yes, ma'am, he whispered. The bell rang for lunch. Izuku didn't move. He put his head on his desk. Midoriya shonen? The voice was hollow, skeletal. Izuku looked up. Tashinori Yagi, All Might, was standing in the doorway in his oversized yellow suit. His sunken eyes were filled with worry. All Might, Izuku said, standing up too quickly. The room tilted. He grabbed the desk. Young Togata told me you were hit by a quirk yesterday, All Might said, walking over. Aizawa said you're cleared for duty, but you look ghastly, my boy. I'm okay, Izuku said, the lie becoming a reflex. Just, the quirk makes it hard to sleep. Is one for all acting up? All Might lowered his voice. Are the vestiges? They're quiet, Izuku admitted. I can't hear them. All Might frowned. That is concerning. Perhaps the quirk that hit you is interfering with the connection. Divergence, a splitting of the self. He placed a large, bony hand on Izuku's shoulder. Listen to me. If you need to sit out, you sit out. The power you hold is immense. If your mind isn't clear, one for all becomes a danger to you and everyone else. I can't sit out, Izuku said, a sudden flash of anger rising in his chest. It surprised him. Shigaraki isn't sitting out. The PLF isn't sitting out. If I stop, people die. All Might looked taken aback by the edge in Izuku's voice. Izuku, I'm sorry, Izuku rubbed his face. I'm tired. But I can handle it. I have to handle it. That's what you did, isn't it? You smiled and handled it. I did, All Might said softly. And look what it did to me. He gestured to his emaciated form. Izuku looked. In the other timeline, All Might was just a celebrity on TV. He was distant. Here, he was a broken man who had given everything. And he was Izuku's future. I have to go to the gym, Izuku said, grabbing his bag. I'll be fine, All Might. I promise. He walked away before his mentor could see the tremor in his hands. The Gamma Gym was a labyrinth of concrete pillars and metal piping, designed to simulate a complex industrial zone. All right, listen up. Aizawa's voice echoed over the loudspeakers. He was standing on an observation platform, his eyes dry and critical. Today's exercise is high-stress decision-making. Villains have planted bombs in the area. Heroes must locate and defuse them while fending off villain attacks. You will be in pairs. Izuku stood in his costume. The green material felt constricting today. The iron soles of his boots felt like anchors. Bakugo, Midoriya. Your team A. You're the heroes. Izuku froze. Of course, Kirishima, Kaminari. Your team B. You're the villains. Bakugo was already adjusting his grenadier bracers. He glared at Izuku. Don't get in my way, Deku. I'm going for the kill. You handle the bomb search. Right, Izuku nodded. Search. I can do search. Start. Aizawa yelled. Bakugo launched himself with an explosion, flying into the maze of pipes. Die, crappy villains. Izuku activated full cowling. Green lightning sputtered around him. 5%. 10%. Usually, he flowed into 20% easily. Today, pushing past 10% felt like trying to run underwater. His channels were clogged with fatigue. Focus. Move. He leaped onto a pillar, scanning the area. His vision swam. The gray pipes blurred together. Where was the bomb? Analysis. Think. In the other world, he would be analyzing traffic patterns right now. Traffic, flow, water. His mind drifted. He saw a pipe. That looks like the drainage pipe in the textile factory. The sewer shark is hiding there. Deku! Behind you! Bakugo's scream shattered the hallucination. Izuku turned, but his reaction was sluggish. His danger sense, usually a sharp stab, was a dull throb that merged with his headache. Kaminari jumped from a shadowed alcove, electricity crackling around him. Indiscriminate shock. 1.3 million volts. It was a telegraphed move. Izuku had seen it 100 times. He just needed to duck and sweep the leg. His brain sent the signal. Duck. His body, heavy with the phantom weight of 2 lives, responded a half-second too late. The electricity hit him. Gah! Izuku screamed as his muscles locked up. He was thrown backward, crashing into a concrete pillar. His head cracked against the stone. He slid to the ground, smoke rising from his costume. Deku! Bakugo abandoned his charge toward Kirishima and blasted backward, landing in front of Izuku. He unleashed an explosion that forced Kaminari back. Get up, you damn nerd! That was a beginner move. Izuku shook his head, trying to clear the ringing in his ears. I thought. You thought what? Bakugo snarled, glancing back at him while keeping Kaminari and Kirishima at bay. You looked right at him and didn't move. Is your danger sense broken? I'm sorry, Izuku gasped, trying to stand. His legs felt like jelly. Incoming! Kirishima yelled, hardening his body and barreling through the smoke like a cannonball. Move! Bakugo shouted. Izuku tried to channel one for all. He reached for the power, but for a split second, his mind overlaid the civilian reality over this one. In the civilian reality, he was quirkless. He couldn't jump. He couldn't smash. He had to run. He hesitated. The dissonance paralyzed him. Do I jump? Do I run? Do I have power? That hesitation was fatal in a fight. Kirishima slammed into him. It was like being hit by a truck. Izuku flew across the room, smashing through a fake wall and tumbling into the debris. Stop! Aizawa's voice killed the action instantly. His capture weapon shot out, wrapping around Kirishima to halt his momentum. The gym fell silent. Izuku lay in the rubble. His ribs ached. His head was spinning so fast he wanted to vomit. He looked up. Bakugo was standing over him. The look on Bakugo's face wasn't anger. It wasn't the usual competitive fury. It was something worse. It was cold, analytical horror. You didn't use your quirk, Bakugo whispered. You tried to run away. Like you were powerless. Izuku coughed, tasting blood. I slipped. Midoriya. Aizawa was there now, kneeling beside him. Can you stand? Yes, Izuku gritted his teeth. He forced himself up, swaying. I can continue. No, you can't, Aizawa said, his eyes narrowing. Your reaction times are down by 60%. Your quirk activation is sputtering. You're a liability right now. Go to the infirmary. Class is over for you. Sensei, please, go. Aizawa's quirk flared, his hair rising. That's an order. Izuku hung his head. Yes, sir. He walked out of the gym. He could feel the eyes of the entire class on his back. He could feel the disappointment radiating off them, but the heaviest weight was Bakugo's silence. The shower in the locker room was scalding hot. Izuku stood under the spray, letting the water pound against his bruised back. He had failed. He was the successor of One for All, the hope of the world, and he had been taken down by a simple tackle because he forgot, for 1 second, that he had power. I'm losing myself, he thought, pressing his forehead against the tiles. The civilian life is bleeding into this one. It's rewriting my instincts. The door to the locker room opened. Izuku stiffened. He turned off the water and grabbed his towel. He stepped out into the main area. Bakugo was sitting on the bench, fully dressed, waiting. The room was empty otherwise. The others must have gone back to class. Izuku didn't say anything. He went to his locker and started dressing. The silence stretched, tight as a piano wire. How long? Bakugo asked. His voice was flat. How long what? Izuku asked, pulling on his shirt. How long have you been awake? Izuku paused. I woke up at 6. Don't lie to me, Bakugo stood up. He walked over, invading Izuku's personal space. I watched you today. You weren't just tired. You were lagging. It's like your controller was unplugged, and when Kirishima hit you, you looked scared. Not battle scared. You looked helpless. You looked like you did in middle school. Izuku flinched. It's the quirk, Kaken. It's messing with my head. It's divergence, Bakugo corrected. Splitting. 2 paths. He grabbed Izuku's chin, forcing him to look up. Bakugo's red eyes searched Izuku's green ones. In the other one, are you awake? Izuku's breath hitched. Bakugo was too sharp. He always had been. Izuku slumped against the locker. Yes, so when you sleep here, I wake up there, Izuku whispered. And when I sleep there, I wake up here. Bakugo released him, stepping back as if burned. So you're not sleeping? At all, no. How long has it been? Since the beam hit. About 40 hours? 48? I lost count. You idiot, Bakugo hissed, running a hand through his spiky hair. You're going to die. Your brain is going to melt. I have to keep going, Izuku said, buttoning his shirt with shaking fingers. Janice said, he said I have 10 days. Then the collapse happens. I have to choose. Choose? One reality becomes real. The other one gets erased. Bakugo went still. So you're auditioning lives? Is that it? No. In the other one, Bakugo interrupted, his voice low. Do you have One for All? Izuku looked down at his feet. No. So you're useless there. I'm not useless. Izuku snapped, his head jerking up. I have a job. I help people. I'm happy there, Kaken. My mom isn't crying every time she looks at me. I don't have these. He shoved his scarred hand in Bakugo's face. I'm normal. And it's peaceful. The words hung in the air, heavy and treasonous. Bakugo stared at the scarred hand. His expression shifted. The anger drained away, replaced by something unreadable. You're happy, Bakugo repeated quietly. I didn't say I wanted to stay, Izuku said quickly, panic rising. I know my duty. I know I have to be the hero. It's hard. It's so hard, Kaken. And I'm so tired. Bakugo looked at him for a long moment. Then, he turned around and kicked the bench. It flew across the room and dented a locker. Damn it! Bakugo roared. He breathed heavily, his back to Izuku. You think this is easy? You think any of this is easy? You picked this path, Deku. You begged for it. You ate the damn hare. I know, then stop acting like a victim. Bakugo turned back, his eyes blazing. If that other life is so great, then pick it. Go be a quirky less nobody. Let Shigaraki rot the world. Is that what you want? No, then wake the hell up. Bakugo grabbed Izuku's collar, slamming him against the locker. You are the holder of one for all. You are the guy who keeps getting back up. If you can't handle the weight, pass it on. But don't you dare stand there and tell me you're tempted to quit because it's peaceful. Izuku stared at him. He saw the fear behind Bakugo's rage. Bakugo was terrified. He was terrified that the pillar they all leaned on was cracking. I'm not quitting, Izuku whispered. Prove it, Bakugo shoved him away. Figure it out. Fix your head. Because if you die from lack of sleep, or if you get killed because you hesitated, I'll never forgive you, and I'll kill that Janus bastard myself. Bakugo grabbed his bag and stormed out of the locker room. Izuku slid down the locker until he hit the floor. He pulled his knees to his chest. Prove it. He wanted to. He wanted to be the hero Bakugo thought he was, but his eyelids were so heavy. Night fell over Yue. Izuku lay in his bed. He had tried to meditate, but the static remained. The clock read 9:59 p.m. He knew what was coming. In the other world, civilian Izuku was finishing his shift. He was walking home. He was going to lay his head on the pillow, and the moment civilian Izuku fell asleep, hero Izuku would wake up. Or rather, the consciousness would shift. But right now, hero Izuku had to sleep. His body was failing. His heart rate was irregular. He looked at the ceiling. I don't want to go back, he whispered. It hurts too much to come back here. It wasn't just the physical pain. It was the emotional whiplash. Going from a world where he was loved for him to a world where he was valued for his power. Going from peace to war. But he had no choice. If he didn't sleep, this body would collapse. He closed his eyes. He felt the familiar pull. The sensation of his soul stretching, tearing, relocating. The smell of antiseptic faded. The smell of old paper and rain replaced it. Snap. Timeline B. The civilian path. Izuku opened his eyes. He was standing on a train platform. It was raining. He was wearing his trench coat. He held a briefcase. He felt light. He felt rested. But in the back of his mind, he could feel the phantom ache of broken bones and the echo of Bakugo's scream. Wake the hell up. I am awake, civilian Izuku whispered to the rain. I'm awake. He stepped onto the train. He had a date with Uraraka tomorrow. He had a case to solve. And for the next 16 hours he didn't have to save the world. He just had to live in it. And that, he realized with a sinking heart, was the most dangerous trap of all. The transition was a mercy. One moment, Izuku was lying in the dormitory bed of Yue, his body a wreck of lactic acid, bruised ribs, and the crushing, gravitational weight of one for all. He was staring at the ceiling, terrified of the nightmares that waited in the dark, his heart skipping beats from sheer physical exhaustion. The next moment, he was warm. It was a warmth that seeped into his marrow, a soft, enveloping comfort that felt like a forgotten memory. The smell of antiseptic and ozone vanished, replaced by the scent of sun-baked cotton and miso soup. Izuku opened his eyes. Sunlight streamed through the window, not the gray, overcast gloom of the Yue morning he had just left, but a bright, golden morning light. Dust motes danced in the beam. He lay there for a long time, afraid to move. In the hero timeline, movement meant pain. It meant checking which joint was stiff, which muscle was torn, which scar was aching. Slowly, Tentatively, he wiggled his toes. Nothing. No cramp. He flexed his fingers. Smooth articulation. No grinding in the knuckles. He sat up. His body felt impossibly light. It was as if he had been wearing a suit of lead armor for years and someone had finally unbuckled the straps. He took a deep breath, his lungs expanding fully without the twinge of bruised ribs. He was in his room. The civilian room. The walls were painted a soft cream color. The desk was organized, stacked high with textbooks on criminology, data science, and sociology. There were no All Might figures, no hero rankings pinned to the corkboard. Just a calendar, a schedule for the local library, and a framed photo of him and his mother at a hot springs resort. "I'm back," he whispered. His voice didn't crack. It was steady. He looked at his hands. They were unblemished. The skin was soft, save for the callus on his middle finger from holding a pen. He brought them to his face, pressing them against his cheeks. They were real. "This is the illusion," a voice in the back of his head, the voice of the hero, insisted. "This is the temptation. Don't fall for it." But as he slid out of bed and his feet touched the rug, the illusion felt more solid than anything he had touched in the last 48 hours. He walked to the door and opened it. "Izuku? Is that you?" "Yeah, Mom. I'm up." He walked into the kitchen. Inko Midoriya was standing at the stove. She turned to smile at him. It was that smile that broke him, every single time. In the hero timeline, Inko's smiles were always brave. They were shields she put up to hide the terror in her eyes. She smiled while her hands trembled. She smiled while checking his body for new bandages. She smiled like a woman who expected a phone call telling her that her son was dead. Here, her smile was effortless. It reached her eyes, crinkling the corners. Her shoulders were relaxed. She looked 5 years younger. "Good morning, sleepyhead," she teased, plating some grilled salmon. "You slept like a rock. I checked on you twice and you didn't even twitch." "I was tired," Izuku said, sitting at the table. He felt a pang of guilt. He hadn't slept. His consciousness had been fighting a war in another dimension while this body rested. But the physical restoration was undeniable. "Well, you've been working hard," Inko said, pouring him tea. "Detective Tsukachi says you're doing the work of 3 analysts. But don't burn out, okay? You have your whole life ahead of you. Your whole life." The phrase hung in the air. In the other world, Izuku didn't plan for a whole life. He planned for the next fight. He planned for the day Shigaraki would come for him. He lived on borrowed time. "Yeah," Izuku managed to say, picking up his chopsticks. "My whole life." He took a bite of the salmon. It tasted incredible. In the dorms, food was fuel. He ate thousands of calories of protein sludge and carb-heavy rice just to maintain one for all. He barely tasted it anymore. Here, the salt, the char of the skin, the sweetness of the miso. It was a symphony. "So," Inko said, sitting opposite him. "Do you have the day off? Or are you heading into the precinct?" "It's Saturday," Izuku recalled, accessing the memories of this timeline that flowed into his mind like a download. "I have a half shift. Then, I'm meeting Nurarika." "Oh, right. The crate date." Inko clapped her hands together. "You should wear that nice olive shirt I bought you. The one that brings out your eyes." "Mom," Izuku groaned, flushing. It was a normal teenager reaction. It felt luxurious to be embarrassed by his mother instead of protected by her. "I'm just saying. She's a nice girl. A hero student. Can you imagine? My Izuku, dating a hero student." She sighed contentedly. "She keeps you safe, I bet." Izuku froze. "She keeps you safe." In this world, he was the damsel. He was the civilian who needed protecting. The thought should have stung his pride. He should have felt the indignation of the quirkless boy who was told he couldn't be a hero, but he didn't. He just felt relief. "Yeah," Izuku whispered. "She's amazing." The commute to the Musudafa police precinct was a study in mundane beauty. Izuku took the train. In the hero timeline, he spent train rides analyzing exit routes, profiling passengers for suspicious behavior, and checking the news for villain attacks. He was always on. Here, he sat by the window and watched the city roll by. He saw children playing in a park. He saw a couple arguing over a map. He saw a businessman sleeping with his mouth open. Nobody looked at him. He wasn't Deku, the boy who broke his bones on national television. He wasn't the rumored successor. He was just a kid in a trench coat with a messy tie. He was invisible. And anonymity, he discovered, was a heavy cloak he was happy to wear. When he arrived at the precinct, the atmosphere was busy but controlled. Phones rang. Officers typed reports. There was no screaming. No quirk usage in the hallways. Midoriya! Detective Naomi Tsukachi waved him over from the central desk. The detective looked tired. He always looked tired in every timeline, but he wasn't injured. He wasn't covered in dust from a collapsed building. Good morning, Detective, Izuku said, walking over. He felt comfortable here. This was his domain. Take a look at this, Tsukachi said, sliding a tablet across the desk. We got a hit on the sewer shark's location based on your humidity algorithm. You were dead on. He was hiding in the old textile factory. Izuku looked at the data. Did you catch him? We're setting up the perimeter now, Tsukachi said. But we have a problem. The hero team assigned to the raid is Lemillion and his agency sidekicks. They want to breach through the main loading bay. Izuku frowned, his mind instantly shifting into analysis mode. It wasn't the combat intuition of Deku. It was the strategic brilliance of a master chess player. No, Izuku said immediately, tapping the screen. They can't go in the loading bay. Look at the blueprints. The textile factory was built in the 60s. The loading bay floor is reinforced concrete, but underneath it is the main drainage outflow. The sewer shark is a hydrokinetic. If they step on that floor, he can pressurize the water underneath and blow the floor upwards. It'll be a geyser. They'll be incapacitated instantly. Tsukachi's eyes widened. I missed the drainage schematic. He'll be waiting for a frontal assault, Izuku continued, his muttering habit kicking in, though here it was seen as a sign of genius rather than creepiness. The shark is cornered. He's desperate, but his quirk draws moisture from the environment. If Lemillion breaches from the roof ventilation, the air is drier up there. It cuts the shark's power output by 40%. They need to drop in, not breach horizontally. Tsukachi grabbed his radio. Dispatch, this is Tsukachi. Patch me through to Lemillion immediately. Abort the loading bay breach. I repeat, abort the breach. We have a tactical update. He looked at Izuku and nodded. Good catch, Midoriya. You might have just saved the number one hero a serious headache. Izuku felt a flush of pride. He hadn't thrown a punch. He hadn't broken a finger. He hadn't risked his life. But he had helped. Just doing my job, sir. You have a gift, kid, Tsukachi said, picking up his coffee. You know, All Might was in town yesterday. He saw some of your reports. He asked who the faceless analyst was. Izuku's heart stopped. All Might? Yeah. The former number one. He said your predictive modeling reminded him of, well, he didn't say who. But he was impressed. Said we're lucky to have you on the side of justice. Izuku looked down at the tablet. In the other world, All Might was his mentor, his father figure, the man who gave him everything. In this world, All Might was a stranger who admired his paperwork. It was a strange, melancholy feeling. But it wasn't painful. It was settled. He said no on the rooftop, Izuku remembered. He told me to be realistic. To be a police officer. Izuku looked around the bustling station. I did it, All Might. I took your advice. And I'm alive. I'm whole. He worked for 4 hours straight. It was deeply satisfying work. Logic. Puzzles. Solutions. There was no ambiguity. No moral gray zones about saving the villains' hearts. Just catching them so they couldn't hurt anyone. At 1 p.m., he clocked out. Don't work too hard, kid, an officer called out as he left. See you Monday. Izuku waved. Monday. The concept of Monday seemed like a luxury. In the hero timeline, he might not live until Monday. Here, it was a guarantee. The cafe was called Sweet Tooth. It was a pastel-colored establishment in the shopping district, popular with students. Izuku sat at a small round table near the window, fiddling with his napkin. He checked his phone. 1:10 p.m. She was 10 minutes late. He didn't mind. He watched the people outside. He saw a group of UA students walking by. He recognized them. Ashido, Ciro, Hagakure. They were laughing, wearing their casual clothes. In the hero timeline, he knew them intimately. He knew Ciro's anxiety about his elbows. He knew Ashido's fear during the Gigantomachia fight. He knew the way Hagakure went quiet when she was scared. Here, they were just strangers. Boisterous, loud, slightly intimidating teenagers with quirks. Izuku shrank back in his seat slightly. He felt the barrier between them. The wall of power. They were gods walking among mortals. And then he saw her. Ochako Uraraka came running down the street, her brown bob bouncing. She was wearing a simple sundress and sneakers. She looked light, not zero-gravity light. Spiritually light. She burst into the cafe, scanning the room. Her eyes landed on him, and her face lit up like a supernova. Deku-kun! She rushed over, breathless. I'm so sorry. The trains were delayed because Mount Lady grew too big and got stuck under an overpass again. Izuku laughed. It was a genuine, bubbling sound. It's okay, Uraraka-san. I just got here. She flopped into the chair opposite him, fanning herself. Phew. Training all morning then running here. I'm starving. Are you paying? You're paying, right? Mr. Policeman? She winked. Izuku blushed. Why, yeah. I got my stipend. My hero. She cheered. They ordered strawberry deluxe for her, matcha crepe for him. When the food arrived, Uraraka ate with a gusto that rivaled the hero timeline, but without the desperation. So, she said, wiping cream from her lip. How's the precinct? Catch any bad guys? We located the sewer shark, Izuku said. I found a flaw in the breach plan. Hopefully, Lemillion listens to the update. Lemillion-senpai is amazing. Uraraka gushed. He came to our class last week for a guest lecture. He's so intense. But he's always smiling. Like All Might used to. Yeah, Izuku said, stirring his iced coffee. He's a true symbol. But you know, Uraraka said, leaning forward, her expression turning serious. He looks tired. Even with that smile. Being the number one, it must be lonely. Carrying all that weight. Izuku gripped his glass. The condensation was cold against his palm. I know, he wanted to say. I know exactly how heavy it is. I guess that's the job, Izuku said quietly. I suppose, Uraraka shrugged, returning to her crepe. That's why I like hanging out with you, Deku-kun. Huh? Izuku blinked. Why? Because you're normal, she said, smiling sweetly. The word hit him like a physical blow. Normal. I mean, she continued, oblivious to his internal recall. At school, everyone is so competitive. Everyone talks about quirks, and rankings, and ultimate moves. It's exhausting. But with you, we can just talk about crepes. Or movies. Or how cute that dog outside is. She pointed out the window. Look. It's a corgi. Izuku looked. It was indeed a corgi. It's cute, he said. See? She beamed. Peaceful. You ground me, Deku-kun. You remind me what we're fighting for. We fight so people like you can eat crepes in peace. Izuku stared at her. People like you, the civilians. The protected. In the hero timeline, Uraraka looked at him with awe, with rivalry, sometimes with fear for his safety. She looked at him as an equal. Here, she looked at him with affection, but also with a subtle pity. The pity of the strong for the weak. But as he looked into her big, warm eyes, he realized he didn't hate it. He didn't have to be strong for her. He didn't have to be her pillar. He could just be her boyfriend. Boyfriend? The thought made his brain short-circuit. Do you want to go to the movies? She asked. There's a new All Might documentary. Or, we could see that romance one. The one with the explosion effects? The romance one, Izuku said instantly. He couldn't handle an All Might documentary right now. Yay! She grabbed his hand across the table. Her hand was soft. In the hero timeline, her hands were rougher. He squeezed her hand back. He felt a tear slide down his cheek. Deku-kun? Her smile faded into concern. Are you okay? Did I say something wrong? No, Izuku wiped the tear away quickly. No, I'm just... I'm really happy right now. That's all. It was the truth. It was a terrifying, seductive truth. He was happy. He was safe. And he was with the girl he liked, and she wasn't in danger of dying because she was close to him. You're so weird, she giggled, squeezing his hand tighter. Come on. Let's go. They spent the afternoon at the mall. They watched the movie. It was terrible, but they laughed about it. They looked at books. They tried on silly hats. For 5 hours, Izuku Midoriya forgot about Shigaraki Tamura. He forgot about One for All. He forgot about the war. He was just a boy in love. As evening approached, they walked toward the station. The sun was setting, casting the city in a warm, amber glow. Today was perfect, Uraraka said, swinging her bag. I needed this. Aizawa-sensei has been working us into the ground. I'm glad I could help, Izuku said. They reached the ticket gates. This was where they parted ways. She went back to Yue. He went back to his apartment. The divide. Hey, Deku-kun, Uraraka said, turning to him. Yes? She stepped closer. She went up on her tiptoes. She kissed him on the cheek. It was soft, quick, and innocent. Izuku froze, his face burning a bright red. Thanks for today, she whispered. She pulled back, smiling shyly. See you next week? Why yeah, Izuku stammered. Next week. She waved and ran through the gates, disappearing into the crowd of commuters. Izuku stood there, touching his cheek. He felt lighter than air. Next week, he thought. She expects me to be here next week. But would he be? The thought crashed into his happiness like a meteor. The timer. Janice. The choice. If he chose the hero life, this Uraraka, this happy, carefree girl who kissed him on the cheek, would cease to exist. She would be replaced by the battle-hardened warrior who looked at him with worry, and he would be replaced by the scarred vessel of power. He walked home in a daze. The amber light of sunset faded to twilight. The shadows grew longer. When he reached his apartment complex, he stopped. Across the street, on a large digital billboard, the news was playing. Breaking news. Villain attack in Shibuya thwarted by Lemillion and Hawks. The screen showed footage of the battle. It was chaotic. Debris everywhere. The camera zoomed in on Lemillion. Mirio was smiling, giving a thumbs up. But Izuku, with his analyst eyes, saw the truth. Mirio was favoring his left leg. He was panting heavily. There was a desperation in his eyes that the cameras didn't catch. He's tired, Izuku realized. He's holding it together, but barely. The villains are getting stronger. The Nomus are evolving. Without the tactical nukes that were Izuku's smashes, without the danger sense, without the multi-quirk versatility of the ninth user, was the world really safe? Or was it just a slower decline? Izuku? He turned. His mother was walking up the path with grocery bags. Mom, let me get those, he said automatically, rushing to take the bags. They were light to him, even without a quirk. Thank you, sweetie, Inko smiled. Did you have a good time with Ochako-chan? Yeah, Izuku said, looking back at the billboard. It was amazing. They walked inside. They made dinner together. Curry. The domesticity was overwhelming. It was a warm blanket that smothered his anxieties. After dinner, Izuku went to his room. He sat at his desk. He pulled out his notebook. He looked at the sewer shark analysis. He had saved lives today. He knew it. I can be a hero without a quirk, he told himself. I can help Tsukachi. I can help Mirio from the shadows. He looked at the empty spot on the wall where the All Might poster should be. He didn't miss it. He really, truly didn't miss it. He changed into his pajamas. He crawled into bed. The sheets were cool and inviting. He checked the clock. 10 p.m. The dread arrived right on schedule. He knew what happened next. The moment he closed his eyes, he would be ripped away from this paradise. He would be shoved back into the broken body of the hero. He would wake up in pain. He would wake up to Bakugo's anger and Aizawa's disappointment. I don't want to go, he whispered into his pillow. Tears pricked his eyes. Please, I don't want to go back. He gripped the sheets. He thought about Uraraka's kiss. He thought about his mother's smile. He thought about the silence of a mind without vestiges screaming in it. I could just stay awake, he thought. If I stay awake here, maybe the other me stays asleep. Maybe I can starve that reality out. But he knew it didn't work like that. The quirk was a pendulum. It had to swing. He fought it. He tried to keep his eyes open, but the peace of this world was a lullaby. It was designed to keep him safe. It wanted him to rest. His eyelids drooped. "I'm sorry, Mom," he thought, as the darkness crept in. "I have to go to the war now." The last thing he felt was the lingering warmth of the cheek kiss. Then, snap, the warmth vanished. The pain returned. The smell of antiseptic filled his lungs. Izuku Midoriya woke up screaming. Timeline A, the hero path. Midoriya! Hands were holding him down. Strong hands. "Calm down. You're safe. You're in the dorms," Izuku thrashed, green lightning sparking uncontrollably. "No! Put me back! Let me go back! Eraser!" A wave of nullification washed over him. The lightning died. Izuku collapsed back onto the mattress, panting, sweat soaking his clothes. He looked up. Kirishima and Ida were holding his arms. Aizawa stood at the foot of the bed, his eyes glowing red, his hair floating. Bakugo was leaning against the door frame, his face unreadable in the shadows. "Midoriya," Aizawa said, his voice tight. "You were screaming. You activated 15% in your sleep. You almost blew a hole in the ceiling." Izuku stared at them. They looked terrified. They looked like soldiers in a trench. Ida's glasses were askew. Kirishima was in his pajamas, his hair down. "I was eating crepes," Izuku sobbed, the words tearing out of his throat. "I was just eating crepes." The room went silent. The heroes looked at each other. They didn't understand. They couldn't understand. Only Bakugo, in the doorway, looked down at the floor. He understood. And the silence he offered was the heaviest thing in the room. Izuku curled into a ball, hiding his face. The peace was gone. The war was back, and for the first time in his life, Izuku Midoriya hated being a hero. The human mind is designed to linearize time. Past, present, future. A straight line. Izuku Midoriya's mind was currently a Mobius strip. It had been 4 days since the incident with Janice. 4 days of the cycle. Wake up in Yui, fight, train, study, bleed, sleep. Wake up in the civilian world. Analyze, date, laugh, live, sleep. Wake up in Yui. There was no rest. There was no off switch. His consciousness was a shark that would die if it stopped moving, swimming desperately between two oceans that were slowly beginning to leak into one another. In the Yui infirmary, Recovery Girl had noted that his cortisol levels were spiking to lethal degrees. She prescribed sedatives. They didn't work. They just made the transition between worlds more nauseating, like being dragged through a kaleidoscope filled with broken glass. Izuku sat in the Class 1A briefing room. It was 2 p.m. on a Tuesday in the hero timeline. Outside, the sky was a bruised purple, threatening a storm. "Focus, people," Aizawa's voice droned from the front of the room. He tapped a digital map of the prefecture. "The Paranormal Liberation Front has gone quiet. Too quiet. We've had scattered reports of high-end Noma sightings near the harbor, but no engagement. They're moving cargo." Izuku stared at the map. The lines of the streets seemed to wiggle. If he squinted, the digital map of the harbor overlaid with the spreadsheet he had been working on in the civilian timeline just 3 hours ago subjectively. In that life, he was tracking illegal import patterns for Detective Tsukachi. Coffee, Izuku thought. He could smell the roasted beans from the precinct break room. But there was no coffee here. Just the metallic tang of polished desks, and the scent of Kirishima's hair gel. "Midoriya," Aizawa said. Izuku didn't blink. He was watching a ghost image of Tsukachi pointing at a warehouse in District 9. "Midoriya!" Bakugo kicked his chair leg. Hard. Izuku jerked, his knees slamming into the underside of the desk. "Yes. Present. I am here." A ripple of uneasy laughter went through the class. Aizawa wasn't laughing. His eyes were narrowed, red-rimmed and tired. "I asked you for your assessment on the patrol routes for Group B," Aizawa said slowly. "You've been staring at the wall for 5 minutes. Right. Sorry." Izuku rubbed his temples. The headache was a constant companion now, a dull throb behind his eyes that spiked whenever he tried to access specific memories. "Group B needs to cover the industrial sector." "Why?" Aizawa pressed. "The intel suggests they're moving through the commercial district to blend in." "No," Izuku said. The word tumbled out before he could check it. "That's wrong." The commercial district has installed new biometric scanners on the traffic lights as of last week. The sewer shark case proved that smuggling rings are avoiding main thoroughfares because the humidity sensors in the sewers trigger alarms for mutation types. Silence descended on the room. Yayorozu raised her hand tentatively. Midoriya-san, the biometric scanners in the commercial district haven't been installed yet. The city council only voted on that proposal yesterday. It's still in the planning phase. Izuku blinked. Right. In the hero timeline, the city was in chaos. Infrastructure projects were delayed. In the civilian timeline, the city was efficient. The scanners were installed last month. And Todoroki added, his voice flat, "Who is the sewer shark?" Izuku froze. The blood drained from his face. The sewer shark was the villain he had helped catch in the other world. In this world, that villain was likely a low-level thug who had never made the news, or had been caught by a random pro-hero years ago. Izuku stammered. I read it. In a report. Somewhere. We don't have access to police cold case files regarding low-level mutation villains, Ida pointed out, adjusting his glasses. Midoriya, are you feeling unwell? Your analysis seems disconnected. I'm fine, Izuku said, gripping the edge of his desk until the laminate cracked. I got confused. I meant the industrial sector is better because shadows. Less surveillance. Aizawa stared at him for a long, uncomfortable moment. Whatever source you're reading, verify it next time. We can't afford hallucinations in the field. Stay behind after class. Yes, sensei. Izuku stared down at his notebook. He had written date with Uraraka Friday in the margin. He erased it so hard the paper tore. He was losing the thread. The tapestry was unraveling. You're leaking, Bakugo said. They were in the changing rooms after the briefing. The room was empty save for the two of them. Bakugo was shoving his costume into his locker with unnecessary violence. I don't know what you mean, Izuku murmured, leaning his head against the cool metal of his locker door. The hell you don't. Bakugo slammed his locker shut and turned on him. Sewer shark? Biometric scanners? You're citing intel from the other place, aren't you? Izuku didn't answer. He felt dizzy. The smell of the locker room, sweat and deodorant, was mixing with the phantom smell of the crepes he had eaten with Uraraka. It was nauseating. It's getting harder to tell them apart, Izuku whispered. Kaken, today, when Aizawa was talking, for a second, I saw Tsukachi standing there. I saw him clear as day. That's because your brain is melting, Bakugo growled. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. You have to choose, Deku. The villain said 10 days. It's day 4. You're almost halfway there. I know. You keep saying you know, but you're hesitating. Bakugo grabbed Izuku's shoulder, his fingers digging in. Is the other life really that good? Is pushing papers and dating round face really worth erasing us? It's not about it being good. Izuku snapped, shoving Bakugo's hand away. It's about it being sane. In that world, people don't die because I was 1 second too slow. In that world, All Might is retired peacefully, not a skeleton wasting away in a staff room. In that world, you aren't constantly looking at me like I'm about to break. Bakugo recoiled slightly, stung. I'm not looking at you like you're going to break, Bakugo muttered, looking away. I'm looking at you like I'm waiting for you to stand up. I am standing up. Izuku cried, his voice echoing in the tiled room. I'm standing up in 2 different worlds for 24 hours a day. I'm so tired, Kaken. I just want to sleep. I just want to close my eyes and not wake up somewhere else. Bakugo didn't yell. He didn't explode. He just looked at Izuku with a strange, grim expression. Then finish it, Bakugo said. Pick a world. Kill the other one. Before the other one kills you. Bakugo walked out. Izuku sank to the floor. He looked at his hands, scarred. Trembling. Kill the other one. To choose the hero path was to kill the happy, safe Izuku. To kill the version of his mother who smiled. To kill the relationship with Uraraka that was blooming so gently. To choose the civilian path was to kill one for all. To erase the legacy. To leave this world, his friends, his duty, to rot. I can't, he whispered. I can't do either. He closed his eyes, desperate for a moment of darkness. But darkness was a luxury he couldn't afford. Snap. Timeline B. The civilian path. The transition was instantaneous. The smell of sweat vanished. The cool night air of Muzdalifa hit his face. Izuku stumbled, his foot catching on a crack in the pavement. He flailed, grabbing a lamppost to steady himself. He was wearing his trench coat. His briefcase was in his hand. He was walking home from the station. It was 9 p.m. He had just woken up mid-stride. Whoa, steady there, buddy. A passerby swerved to avoid him. Sorry, Izuku gasped. Sorry. He leaned against the lamppost, breathing heavily. His body felt wrong. It was too light. In the hero world, he was dense with muscle. He moved with the weight of a tank. Here, he felt like a feather. The lack of mass threw off his center of gravity. Okay, he muttered to himself. Okay. Civilian mode. You are Izuku Midoriya. You work for the police. You are quirkless, he repeated the mantra. You are quirkless, but his nerves were singing with the static of One for All from seconds ago. He could still feel the hum of full cowling under his skin, a phantom limb sensation that encompassed his entire body. He pushed off the lamppost and continued walking. He needed to get home. He needed to see his mom. Her smile would ground him. He turned down a side street, a shortcut he often took in this timeline. It was a narrow alleyway between a convenience store and a laundromat. Thud, muffled scream. Izuku froze. His ears, trained by years of hero work in the other timeline, picked up the sound instantly. It came from the shadows ahead. He crept forward, peering around the dumpster. 3 men. 1 victim. The victim was a young woman, clutching a purse. One of the men, a guy with spikes protruding from his shoulders, had her pinned against the wall. The other 2 were rummaging through her pockets. Quiet down, lady, the spiked man hissed. Or I'll turn you into a pincushion. Please, the woman sobbed. Take the money. Just let me go. We'll take the money, another thug laughed. And maybe we'll take a little fun, too. Red-hot anger flared in Izuku's chest. It was the same anger that had made him rush the sludge villain to save Bakugo. It was the instinct that overrode fear. It was the hero instinct. In the hero timeline, this was a Tuesday. A warm-up. He would zip in, 5% full cowling. A Manchester smash to the spiked guy, a sweeping kick to the other 2. Bind them with black whip. Over in 3 seconds. His body moved before his brain could scream stop. Hey! Izuku shouted, stepping out from behind the dumpster. The 3 thugs turned. They saw a skinny kid in a trench coat holding a briefcase. They laughed. Get lost, kid, the spiked man sneered. Unless you want to bleed, let her go, Izuku said. His voice dropped an octave, channeling the authority of a pro-hero. You're committing armed robbery and assault. The police are on their way. The police ain't here yet, one of the thugs said, cracking his knuckles. His hands transformed into stone hammers. But I am. The stone hand thug lunged. Izuku's brain, running on hero operating software, calculated the trajectory. Right hook. Slow. Telegraphing the swing. Dodge left. Counter with a kidney punch using 8%. Izuku dodged left. It was perfect. His combat experience was intact. He planted his foot to pivot and launched the counterattack. He triggered the mental switch for full cowling. SMA. Nothing happened. There was no green lightning. No surge of power. No explosive speed. Instead of a supersonic punch that would shatter rock, Izuku threw a normal, human fist. And because he expected the super speed, his timing was off. He overextended. His fist connected with the thug's stone stomach. Crack. Pain exploded up Izuku's arm. He hadn't broken the thug. He had broken his own hand. Gah! Izuku cried out, stumbling back. The lack of One for All left him exposed, unbalanced, and horrified. The thug looked down at his stomach, then at Izuku. He grinned. That tickled. Oh no, Izuku whispered. The thug swung his stone hammer hand. Izuku tried to dodge, but his body wasn't fast enough. He didn't have the reinforced durability. The stone fist slammed into his ribs. It felt like being hit by a car. Izuku was lifted off his feet and thrown into the brick wall of the convenience store. He crumpled to the ground, wheezing. Air wouldn't enter his lungs. His vision swam with black spots. You got a death wish, hero? The spiked man laughed, walking over. Izuku tried to stand. His legs wouldn't work. He coughed, and blood splattered onto the pavement. I'm going to die, he realized with a cold, detached clarity. I brought a hero's ego into a civilian's body. I forgot who I was. Finish him, the spiked man ordered. The stone-hand thug raised both fists for a crushing overhead blow. Izuku looked up. He couldn't move. He couldn't summon Black Whip. He couldn't do anything. He closed his eyes, waiting for the dark. Is this how I choose? By dying in the one place I was safe? Power! The shout was so loud it rattled Izuku's teeth. A blur of white and gold shot out of the ground, literally out of the pavement, between Izuku and the thug. Bam! The stone-hand thug was launched into the air as if hit by a cannonball. He flew 20 feet and crashed into a pile of trash bags, unconscious. The spiked man and the third thug froze. Standing there, cape fluttering in a wind that didn't exist, was a figure that radiated pure, unadulterated hope. He was tall, muscular, blonde hair styled in a cowlick. His costume was white with a red cape and the number 1,000,000 emblazoned on his chest. Le Million! The spiked man shrieked. Run! No running! Mirio Togata boomed. He sank into the ground, vanishing instantly. A second later, he popped out of the wall behind the third thug, punching him in the jaw. Pow! The thug went down. The spiked man turned to flee, but Le Million was already there, phasing through the man's defensive spikes and delivering a precise chop to the neck. It was over in 4 seconds. Mirio dusted off his hands. He turned to the crying woman. Are you alright, miss? Why yes, she sobbed. Thank you, Le Million. Get to safety. The police will handle the cleanup. He gave her a thumbs up. Then, he turned to Izuku. The brilliant smile faded, replaced by serious concern. Hey! Mirio rushed over, kneeling beside Izuku. Easy there, citizen. That was a nasty hit you took. Izuku looked up at him. Mirio's face was unscarred. His eyes were bright blue ovals of cartoonish energy. He was the sun. Le Million, Izuku wheezed. Don't try to talk. Your ribs might be fractured. Mirio carefully placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. That was brave. Stupid, but brave. You tried to protect her. Izuku felt a wave of shame wash over him. I thought I could. You moved like a pro, Mirio observed, his eyes narrowing slightly. Your stance. The way you pivoted. You've had training? No, Izuku whispered. Just watched a lot of videos. Mirio chuckled. Well, leave the punching to us next time, okay? You nearly got squashed. He lifted Izuku effortlessly, carrying him bridal style. I'm taking you to the hospital. Hold on. As Mirio leaped onto the rooftops, carrying Izuku through the night sky, Izuku pressed his face against the hero's chest. He could hear Mirio's heart beating. Strong. Steady. And he could feel the hum of one for all. It wasn't inside him. It was inside Mirio. In this world, All Might had given the hair to Mirio. Mirio was the 9th holder. Izuku closed his eyes, the pain in his ribs dulling in comparison to the ache in his heart. He's better at it than me, Izuku thought bitterly. He saved me. I couldn't even save myself. Timeline B, Musitifu General Hospital. The antiseptic smell was back. Izuku lay in a hospital bed, his chest wrapped in bandages. His right hand was in a cast. 3 broken ribs and a metacarpal fracture, the doctor had said. You're lucky the internal bleeding was minor. The door flew open. Izuku! Inko Midoriya rushed in, her face pale. This time, the fear was real. The peace was shattered. Mom, Izuku rasped. She ran to the bed, hovering over him, afraid to touch him. Oh my God! The police called. They said you tried to fight 3 villains? What were you thinking? I don't know, Izuku lied. I just reacted. You're an analyst, Izuku. You analyze. You don't fight. She was crying now. You could have died. You're not a hero. You're not a hero. The words cut deep. In the other world, those words were his motivation. Here, they were a statement of fact. A rule of the universe he had violated. I'm sorry, he whispered. There was a knock on the open door. Mirio Togata stood there, still in his costume, though he had removed his mask. He held a fruit basket. Excuse me, Mirio said gently. Mrs. Midoriya? Inko turned, wiping her eyes. She gasped. Lemillion? I wanted to check on your son, Mirio said, walking into the room. He placed the basket on the side table. He was incredibly brave tonight. Reckless, but brave. He's an idiot, Inko sniffed, though she looked awed by the number one hero's presence. Mirio looked at Izuku. That blue gaze felt like it was x-raying Izuku's soul. Can I have a moment with him? Mirio asked. Inko nodded. I'll go get some water. Thank you for saving him. She squeezed Izuku's uninjured hand and left the room. Silence stretched between the two boys. One, the golden successor. The other, the broken pretender. You know, Mirio said, pulling up a chair. I've seen a lot of civilians try to be heroes. Usually, they just swing wildly. But you. He mimed a punch. You threw a corkscrew hook. That's advanced stuff. And you anticipated the stone guy's swing before he even started it. Izuku stared at his cast. Lucky guess. Mirio leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. His expression was serious. I recognize you. You're the kid who works with Scotchy. The faceless analyst. All Might mentioned you. Izuku's breath hitched. He said you have a mind that scares him, Mirio continued. He said you understand villains better than they understand themselves. And tonight I saw you move with the instinct of a fighter. Mirio paused. He lowered his voice. Are you frustrated, Midoriya? Izuku looked at him. What? That you don't have a quirk? Mirio asked gently. Is that why you jumped in? Because you feel like you should be out there? The question was so close to the truth it terrified Izuku. Izuku swallowed. I just want to help people. Mirio smiled. It was the smile. The All Might smile. You do help people. You help us. Tsukachi told me your tip about the sewer shark saved my team from a trap today. If we had gone in the loading bay, we would have been sitting ducks. Izuku blinked. He got the message. You saved us, Mirio said firmly. You saved me. And because you saved me, I was able to be there tonight to save you. Mirio stood up and patted Izuku's good shoulder. We all have our roles, Midoriya. I'm the shield. You're the eyes. Don't try to be the shield again, okay? The world needs its eyes. Mirio turned to leave. At the door, he stopped and looked back. Get well soon, hero. He left. Izuku stared at the empty doorway. Hero. Mirio had called him a hero, but he had also put him in his place. I'm the shield. You're the eyes. Izuku sank back into the pillows. The painkillers were kicking in, making his head fuzzy, but the clarity remained. He had nearly died because the lines blurred. He had tried to be Deku in a world that only had room for Midoriya, and seeing Mirio, it was a relief. Mirio was strong. Mirio was perfect for one for all. Mirio didn't break his bones every time he used it. The world was safe in Mirio's hands. I don't need to be the holder, Izuku thought, the seduction of the civilian path deepening. Mirio is better at it. If I stay here, the world is fine. And I'm alive. But then a glitch. As Izuku stared at the fruit basket Mirio had left, the apples seemed to rot before his eyes. The white hospital walls flickered, turning into the gray concrete of a collapsed building. He heard screams. Not from the mugging victim, but from thousands of people. Shigaraki's laugh. The hallucination lasted only a second, but it left Izuku cold. The bleed wasn't just him acting like a hero in the civilian world. It was the danger of the hero world leaking into the safety of this one. Janice, Izuku whispered. You said the worlds would collapse. The barrier was thinning. If he didn't choose soon, he wouldn't just die. He would bring the war with him. He closed his eyes, exhaustion pulling him under. But he didn't want to sleep, because he knew where he would wake up. He would wake up in the world where he was the shield. And the shield was cracking. Timeline A, the hero path. Snap. Pain. Immediate, blinding pain. But not in his ribs. In his head. Izuku woke up sitting at his desk in the common room. It was late at night. He had passed out while studying. He gasped, clutching his chest. He expected broken ribs. He felt solid muscle. No pain. He looked at his hand. No cast. Just the old scars. Midoriya? He looked up. Todoroki was standing there, holding a glass of water. You were muttering in your sleep, was I? Izuku panted, checking his body again. The phantom pain of the broken ribs was agonizing, even if the bones were whole. You were saying Lemillion, Todoroki said flatly. And you were clutching your side. Izuku stared at Todoroki. For a second, Todoroki's face glitched. The scar on his left side vanished, then reappeared. The ice and fire quirks seemed to sputter out, then reignite. Todoroki-kun, Izuku whispered. Do you trust me? That is a strange question, Todoroki said. Yes, if... Izuku swallowed. If I told you that I'm not sure if I'm real anymore, what would you say? Todoroki looked at him. He didn't think Izuku was crazy. He looked thoughtful. I would say that reality is subjective. But your actions are objective. You are here. You are our friend. And you look like you need sleep. I can't sleep, Izuku said, his voice trembling. If I sleep, I break my ribs. Todoroki frowned. That sounds like a metaphor. It's not, Izuku stood up. The room spun. The overlay was getting worse. He could see the hospital room superimposed over the dorm lounge. He could see his mother crying in the corner of the room. I need to go, Izuku said. Go where? It's 2 a.m. To the gym. Midoriya, I need to move. Izuku shouted. I need to remind my body what it can do. I need to know I'm not quirkless. He activated full cowling. Green lightning surged around him. It felt good. It felt right. Unlike the emptiness in the alleyway, the power was here. It flooded his veins, erasing the feeling of helplessness. This is who I am, Izuku thought desperately. I am power. I am the ninth. He turned and ran out of the dorms, leaving a confused Todoroki behind. He ran into the night. He ran until his lungs burned. He ran to outrun the memory of the peace he had felt in Mirio's shadow. But as he ran, he saw a reflection in a glass window. For a split second, the reflection wasn't wearing a hero costume. It was wearing a trench coat. And it was crying. The bleed had become a flood. And the ultimatum was drawing closer. 5 days left.